I'm Claude Boudéen. I'm a French PhD student from the French Naval Academy. It's a pleasure to be here, even if I am in remote and I have a bad link, sorry for that, to introduce myself. My research area concerns the improvement of anomaly detection in cybernetic naval systems by data generation. And today I'm going to present you our article, which is entitled Holistic Approach of Integrated Equipment for Cybersecurity at Sea. You can go for the... Thank you. First of all, who we are. All of this work is supported by a laboratory called a research laboratory called the Chair of Naval Cyber Defense, ideally located in the northwest of France, northwest coast of France, which is it's a laboratory which is in collaboration and partnership with engineering schools, the French Navy and defense industry. The laboratory studies different research areas in maritime cybersecurity, such as the cyber protection, to develop better protected naval systems from design, which, for example, the more global integration of risk assessment, cyber resilience, to perform resilience and robust systems against cyber attacks, and cyber defense to better detect cyber attacks and taking countermeasures, repairing, containing, preventing them from spreading. And today we are going to especially focus on this part by presenting what we have been working on. You can go on the next slide. Thank you. But why cybersecurity applies on the maritime world? Let's put a little part of context. We can undoubtedly say that today that maritime transport is the big winner of globalization, because nowadays maritime trade is the main place for worldwide gold exchanges. Not less than 90% of the world trade in volume is carried out by boats, and about 80% if we count by value, if you count by the cost of value, the cost of the goods. Every second, almost 300 tons of goods are transported all over the seas by cargo ships, container tankers, with more than 50,000 ships sailing in international waters. It's by far the first mean of global trade. And to meet these needs, the maritime sector is facing a continuous shift toward digitalization. A shift built during the last decade show all characteristics and features of a comprehensive information system, combining information and operational technologies. You can go in the next slide, please. Thank you. While industrial control systems like programmable logic controllers and SCADA are used for engine and power management, the bridge is now highly relying on digital sensors, network, and display to ensure the navigation. But even if this kind of system have been designed to have a long lifetime on board, because we talk about 15 and 20 years, obviously pretty difficult to change and upgrade. They have not been designed in terms of cybersecurity and present a lot of vulnerabilities that can compromise the proper functioning of the ship. There is no encryption, no authentication, no integrity, no confidentiality check. It's like an open bar. Meanwhile, over the last few years, many cyber attacks targeting maritime assets and make publicly confirm a real interest of criminal and non-state actors in this critical sector for our globalized economies. As presented in many reports from the Naval Dome Agency in 2021, and also by the French Cyber Maritime Association in 2022, which were created precisely to prevent this kind of risk. You can go in the following slide, please. Thank you. So, new security challenges have emerged to face off the vulnerabilities of the Global Navigation Satellite System, the GNSS. Here is a short list of cyber attacks cyber attacks which can affect the onboard GNSS and compromise the navigation. We can notice the well-known GPS jamming, which is the process of using a frequency transmitting device linked to orbiting satellites to block or interfere with radio communication by emitting radio signal at the same frequency of the GPS enabled device. And there is also another attack, the GPS spoofing, which is more intelligent than the GPS jamming because it is not only consists of make some radio interferences in order to overpower the weak GNSS signal. It also makes the receiver believe it is at a fake position. For example, in June 2017, a major GNSS cyber attack targets more than 20 vessels at the Black Sea, in the Black Sea. All the present vessels in a specific area had suddenly a false location, which was not in the sea, but in the Gelensnik airport during the several minutes. Also in 2017, a British tanker, the name, the Stena Impero, was boarded by the Iranian Coast Guard in the Persian Gulf after being spoofed. The tanker was boarded for illegally entering Iranian territorial waters after an unexpected route deviation. A British report announced that the Stena Impero was a victim of spoofing, which is an example of using this type of cyber attacks for geopolitical reasons. Can you go on to the next, please? Thank you. Another well-known case that took place over years ago, the Suez Canal obstruction in March 2021 for more than 6 days by the largest container ship ever given, impact more than 10% of the world freight transport and cause Evergreen, the Ever Given company, to lose millions of dollars, but it also had consequences to Egypt, the country, whose national economy depends on the proper functioning of this canal. A recent report indicates that the cause of the accident and the incident have been attributed to a combination of bad weather factors and human errors in navigational input by the bridge team. But even though it's unlikely that a cyber attack was the cause, it is a reminder that this type of maritime incident can have high economic and geopolitical consequences, and that hackers can largely take advantage of it. Can you go in this next slide, please? Thank you. So, why is this project? In order to improve the detection method of cyber attacks on this type of vulnerable systems, we are developing a naval cyber range in our research laboratory. It's a real digital twin of a real ship, able to combine operational technologies with industrial control system, navigational system that we can find on the bridge, and informational technologies through the virtualization of a classic ship IT infrastructure. This platform allows us to generate realistic data and to do some experiments for our studies. But even if the interconnection of systems make possible to carry out relevant analysis, one of the main problems of this platform is that it doesn't move. By definition, it is complicated to pretend to generate realistic data if the boat we are currently simulating is not moving at all. So to answer this problem, we had to imagine an alternative to feed this naval cyber range with real navigation data from real ships. Can you go in the slide 8, please? Thank you. The idea, the previous one, please. Thank you. The idea behind this project is to collect both GNSS data. The GNSS is like a global navigation satellite system from GPS receiver. For example, you have the GPS receiver, you have the Galileo, you have the Beidou, etc. And AIS data. AIS is like automatic identification system, and data from various sensors, such as weather and inertial station data. But why we are looking to collect such data and not just use existing IS database? Good question. In fact, the data from GNSS receiver are in NMEA format. NMEA format is like the standard proposed by the National Marine Electronic Association. And these data are much more complete and much more rich than the data that we can find in the existing database. Because in addition to the data visible in the well-known frames that we can find in the database, you can have additional information like GPGGA, GPRMC, GPGSB, or GPGSA frame. And this frame allows you to collect precise information about the satellites, such as the reception quality, ID of satellites, radar angle, integrated instrument, etc. But in this case, why collect IS data in addition? Because our system wants to collect it as well. Another good question, because we want to be able to correlate data for in-depth analysis by cross-referencing several sources of information. And for our sensor data, it's used to determine certain kinematics of the ship and feed the industrial processes of our naval cyber range with real data to make the platform live. Can you go in the slide 9, please? Thank you. So to do this, we have imagined, designed, and developed an all-in-one embedded system in the form of a suitcase in which we find all the elements that we need for our data collection. One of the constraints was that the system had to be autonomous because it just needed to be powered to work by itself. It had to be sufficient powerful to collect all the data at the same time and at a high frequency, and it had to be easily transportable in any type of boat and be able to send data securely from anywhere, regardless of the function of the boat on which it is installed. So to do this, we use a Raspberry Pi electronic board with open source sensors technologies using the GPIO of the Raspberry Pi, using a USB port for an easy installation. And finally, we use also a 4G module, which sends encrypted data to a receiving server. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in the slide, you have the global picture showing the interaction between the system, the boat, and our receiving server on the right in our naval cyber range platform. So as you can see, the system is totally independent from the boat. All of the data are sent in real time to the receiving server. And we have also added the possibility to manage it remotely to work in case of problem and make updates. All of the data received on the server feeds a database connected to the platform, and it's directly injected into the platform system to manage the interaction with the different systems. This allows us to for example, replay different scenarios by adding anomalies and cyber attacks, and thus test our detection system. One of the strong points of this collection strategy is that the attack that we perform do not need to be performed on real ships to collect realistic data. The data is collected first, and then the anomaly are generated, just like in digital shooting range, you know, without having any consequences on operational system and maritime operation. Can you go in the next slide, please? Thank you. Some more concrete example of our prototype. We have developed two of them and two different ships. A ship on a ship of a passenger transport company that you can see in the image below, and a ship of dedicated to test and technology trials in IC, specialized for this kind of experimentation. So the journeys of these ships are not very long, and concretely, they can be recovered at any time if needed, but this is enough to test and validate our system before embedding this on more longer journey. So in the next slide, the slide 11, thank you. You have other example to show you the different human-machine interfaces that are installed on the prototype. These human-machine interfaces allow onboard operator on the transport ship, for example, to interact with the system if needed. But above all, it helps us to know if everything is working well, everything is okay during the experimentation. You can go next, please. Thank you. The main contribution of this project are this one. Respond to the lack of realistic data available for this research area and make them freely available to research community. The possibility of scenarios replayability by adding realistic anomalies and cyber attacks for data generation, like GPS jamming, GPS spoofing, mine in the middle, etc. And we are in the process of clarifying all how we will make this data available for the research community. And finally, this data allows us to realize more in-depth analysis on navigation data by combining several sources to improve the detection capacity of the systems. Can you go in the next slide, please? Thank you. In that sense, we have developed a number of dashboards like the one you have here, which allow us to visualize the data in real time. On the left, on the right, and on the right, you have the evolution of different anemia field, data field from GNSS information, but you have a dashboard dedicated to sensors data as well as navigation maps. All of these data are feeding into an electronic chart display information system, and the Ies data from surrounding boats that we collect from our prototype are interpreted by a bridge command. Bridge command is like an open source simulator, navigation simulator, and allow us to view the collected ships, to view them in 3D for more immersion during the simulation scenarios. And thus, during cyber attack scenarios, we can also simulate collision groundings due to cyber attacks. Can you go in the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. Concerning the generation of data with anomalies and the possibility of scenario replayability, sorry, we have developed a tool called NAGE for Anemia Attack Generation Engine. This tool allows us to modify legitimate anemia data to simulate cyber attacks on satellite navigation systems. And we also have several possible scenarios, such as a static or dynamic attack that are more or less visible and based on real events occurred. This generator modified the anemia frame which are sent to the navigation systems, which can alter the operation. And the tool is still under development, but it will be present in another paper dedicated precisely to data generation. Can you go in the next slide, please? Thank you. Last but not least, and moreover, there is some information about the data generated by this tool. As you can see in the following pictures, if we look about the evolution of the different fields present of the anemia data collected by the data collected by the prototype and the modification made by the anomaly generator, it's allow us to have a solid base to improve the performance of our detection system. We can also imagine to use, for example, machine learning algorithm to compare normal and abnormal behavior based on anemia frame from GPS data and from our prototype. on these pictures, a fixed position has been assigned, a false fixed position has been assigned to the system for few minutes, and this changed the evolution of the other data field of the protocol. So now that we have proposed a prototype of a functional system, our future studies will focus on this detection area, in addition to the work we are already done. And moreover, one of the perspectives is also to develop more of this prototype. You can go, no problem. It's also to develop more of this prototype and on other boats, in particular boats capable of making longer journey. So far, we have only collected, for example, a few months of data, and our goal is to collect a few years, for example. So, Erigo, thank you so much for your interest and your attention.